Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting of Monday, June 24th, 2019. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Daniel.
Present.
Councillor DePietro. Councillor Jovan.
Present.
Councillor Lazo.
Present.
Councillor Manna.
Present.
Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Steves.
Present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Item 3, consider and accept the Town Council minutes of Monday, June 10th, 2019. Is there a motion?
Second.
Are there any errors, corrections, or omissions? Councilor Steves.
Thank you. I actually do have a few. Hopefully, they're relatively simple. I just want to point out to you your announcement of items 30 to 40 wouldn't be also didn't end up doing 3, 4, and 5 for that reason. I don't recall us ever actually voting to open the public hearing, so we couldn't actually vote to close the public hearing in item number 5. A couple of other spelling things under item number 9. Watching should be washing. Sentiment should be sediment. I'm assuming that those are spell check things. Item number 11, a local citizen was seen flying a Nazi flag. Under the second paragraph, the LNG facility is designed to liquefy and store. And also it should be available at the tri-community libraries, not the tri-county libraries. Under 13, it's about the fourth line from the bottom of the page. Personal should be personal. And let me skip a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, and under item number 45, the last sentence says, Councillor Steves was just curious as to something. It just kind of stops. I don't even know what it was, so you might as well just eliminate the sentence. And I guess that's it.
Thank you. Anything further, councilors? Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just quickly, I've already passed along to Mary agenda item 41. Council Chair DePietro just needs to be amended. I don't know if it was Council Chair Jovan or Councilor DePietro that made the comment. Thank you.
Thank you. What page was that, Councilor?
It's item 41.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yep.
Did you say or did Mark?
I believe it was Councilor DePietro.
Yeah.
So we'll eliminate Council Chair. It was Councilor DePietro that corrected. Any further? All those in favor as amended? Opposed?
Abstention?
Councilor Lazo abstains. Subcommittee reports, General Government, Councilor Steves.
Did not have a meeting because it got canceled because of all the chaos that happened last week. And I do not have one scheduled.
Thank you. DPW, Councilor DePietro is not here, but that was canceled as well due to the issues with the town hall. There are several items on the agenda tonight, so we'll take those up as they come. Education and Human Services, Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My meeting was canceled and there were no meetings scheduled.
Thank you. Plan and Development, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a meeting on 19 June. Items 20 through 22 are on this agenda. All voted in favor of. That's all I got. And none scheduled, by the way.
Thank you. Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Manna.
No meetings, none planned. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Chairman's announcements. First off, just for the public, I'd like to publicly welcome Councilor Scott Lazo to the dais. It's a little strange to be elected and serve before the actual July 1 where we get sworn in, but Councilor Lazo was elected to fill an unexpired term, so he gets to grace us with his presence on this sitting term for 1 week, and we'll welcome him back next week. So welcome, Councilor Lazo. I look forward to working with you. I believe this will be your second tour of duty on council, yes. Correct? So I'm sure we'll hear about your first tour because I know I've heard it in the school committee. So welcome. I appreciate all the work with that. To the town, I'd like to apologize for what occurred last week with the town hall closing. Certainly there was an issue, and we were all for the safety of our employees and our residents who come into the town hall. A lot of work was done to rectify the situation. And at this point, I'm not going to cast blame on any particular group, person, entity, but what it is, I'm going to think that this council is going to take this as a exercise in what we need to do to be better prepared in case of emergencies involving our town facilities. It was clear that the town of Southbridge and the town government did not have any plan in place, emergency plan, if something were to happen to this town hall. That's unacceptable. I've lived through a town hall burning down in my tenure as police chief in the town of Holland. It's not a fun exercise. Fortunately, with this, we're able to get back into the building. All our records are safe and secure, and it was, an issue that was easily rectified. However, if we were to have a major catastrophe, we were not prepared to be able to go forward quickly, and that is something that this next council is going to have to address to make sure that we better prepare ourselves, not only in the town hall operations, but to make sure that simple things like having a diagram of what our buildings look like, so that when emergency responders or other entities come and say, hey, do you have a diagram of what this building looks like? So when I go in, I know where I'm going. That's important to have, not only for other entities, but I think for our local law enforcement and firefighters. In this day and age, we see all the time these issues in towns and town governments with tragedy and active shooters, and that you need to be prepared when you send people into buildings. And so I think we'll take this as a learning experience, but it's not going to sit on the shelf and not be addressed. It will be addressed, hopefully, by the new sitting council come July 1.
Mr. Chair, if I may on that note, certainly it was a learning experience, but I think it would be in order to give some kudos to all the folks in the departments in this town hall who pulled it back together again at the Armory in kind of a split second, and this government continued.
Yep, absolutely. Point well taken, Councilor.
And that the citizens realize that the town of Southbridge government is not this great big red building across from the fire station. It's the people that make it all happen.
Absolutely.
And kudos to them, absolutely.
Thank you for the input, and I do appreciate all the employees because they did work hard to get things put together and try and experience. So thank you for that, Council. I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate all the employees for all their hard work. Councilor DePietro, I'd like to wish you well. This is your last official regular council meeting, so I'd like to wish you well and thank you for your service on this council and your input in the various subcommittees. I know I'll miss you and your input to this council, so wish you well and thank you. As far as the election, I'd like to thank the voters for allowing me to serve the town of Southbridge for another 3-year term. Look forward to working with Councilor Manor as she fills a 1-year term. Look forward to continuing that. Again, Councilor Lazo, and to the 2 newly elected councilors-elect, Councilor Catrona and Councilor-elect Marquetti, look forward to working with you in the upcoming year. As we come to a close on this past year, I'd like to thank all the councilors that elected me chairman of this council and have worked with me throughout this past year. We had a lot of issues when we hit the ground running on July 1st, and I know that it was a challenge because we lost 2 councilors during the year again, and we were short-staffed, but we all pulled together, and I think if we were to look back on this year and the accomplishments and the agenda that we pushed forward, there was a tremendous amount of work done, and it doesn't end there. The new sitting council, I look forward to working with everybody as we move forward in the next siting, because we have to continue to work on the school system, working together with them and the receiver. We had the vote for the marijuana bylaw that we're going to have to work, and that's economic development, and work through to make sure that whatever we do it correctly for the best of the town. So again, thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you all. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to welcome the new members to the board. It's nice to see them, and to also thank the current members and those ones that are leaving for their support over the last couple of years. It's been an honor to work with you guys, and I'm looking forward to working with the new council as well. As I've said in the past, my door is always open to new council members, and please, if you have an appointment or don't have an appointment, if I'm free, I'd be more than happy to meet with you and discuss any issues that are important to you. I had an opportunity to go to some training with our Deputy Police Chief, Jose Dingy, to do some training as it relates to substance abuse issues with a Dr. Pote, who is a very, very highly qualified doctor who deals with the issues of substance abuse and overdoses. It was an unbelievably well put together conference, looked at important issues in dealing with the whole opioid issue of the deaths and what can be done to avoid that, and how the town could participate even more and look at ways to frankly save lives and to keep people from getting involved in this process. As you all know, we have a Substance Abuse Advisory Board who is working on their second-year plan. We're developing brochures to send out to parents of our middle school and high schoolers. We are looking at doing the billboard again this year. We are looking for major speakers to come and speak to the children. We are trying to do everything in our power to educate the public about the dangers of this. I don't know the way to call it. It's garbage. It's just poison, and people need to understand how dangerous it is to this community. A number of councilors have been talking with me about the basketball courts on Henry Street. If you've taken a look over there, we've done some patching work has already been done. Rain has been a factor. We schedule the guys to come out, and all of a sudden it rains and we can't do the work. But progress is being made. It was nice to go by there tonight and see a bunch of kids still playing basketball. Not to see grass within the basketball court was a real positive thing. I'm looking forward to that issue being resolved. Also, we've had an opportunity to work with the two vendors looking to run our sewer treatment plant. Myself, our DPW, and our assistant DPW director have been analyzing the proposals brought by the two companies. Happy to say we have two highly qualified companies looking to manage our sewer treatment plant. Ty and Bond is a true asset in helping us analyze the information that's been sent to us. We will be shortly interviewing those. We've already scored them, and we're going to be shortly interviewing those two vendors to ask them questions and make sure that we're comfortable that they would run our plant efficiently. And again, I'm pleased that both are qualified companies. I've had an opportunity to talk to Councilor Nash a little bit about that. He was involved in the process in the beginning, and his expertise is very helpful as we talk about this particular issue. I appreciate the chairman's comments as it relates to the closing of Town Hall, and I do want to compliment my team, who I think did an extraordinary job in dealing with a very difficult situation. Thursday night we got word that there may be potential asbestos in the building that spread it, and by Friday morning we had somebody in there already inspecting the building and doing air quality tests. We were in immediate contact with the Department of Environmental Protection, and by Monday, Department of Environmental Protection was here doing tests in the building. To me, that's a pretty remarkable feat, getting DEP to be anywhere within 2 days and to analyze the building and do the testing. And the fact that we were able to open Wednesday afternoon, I thought was extraordinary, given the situation, to get all those players involved, to actually do all the environmental testing that needed to be done on the building, and to get us back fully operating Wednesday evening, I thought was great. Had a department head meeting on Monday to discuss issues, and I will be providing a full report to this town council about all the events that occurred throughout the process. But I was very pleased that how department heads all came together to come up with a way to operate as quickly as Tuesday and Wednesday, to operate most of all the basic functions of Town Hall, as Chairman or Councilor DePietro said. We had our tax collector's office running efficiently out of the community center. We had a health department. We had all our inspectors out. All employees went to training. It was really nice to see the department heads bring forward their experience, their knowledge in putting this together. We do have, just to be clear, we do have a long-term emergency management plan that deals with long-term issues. For instance, if the building did catch on fire, how we would deal with those longer-term issues. What is apparently missing, and something that is a lessons learned from this, is a short-term situation. When facilities are lost on a short-term basis, long-term plans result in big money to get access to computer systems. You have to hire staff, you have to do a lot of things. And we have a plan for that. We get insurance money, we know what we're doing. These short-term blips where all of a sudden you have to close a building on short-term notice for short periods of time, we can't spend a lot of money to, reset up IT systems and stuff. So we have to do it more, from a short-term planning basis. And from the minute we closed Thursday night, we began planning a lot of things, particularly making sure that we get this building open as fast as possible, because we want to get the maximum performance for our citizens. So overall, I'm pleased. I think the chair is absolutely correct. It's a lessons learned that we have to do. I've asked my department heads to meet tomorrow to do just that, a lessons learned, to look at all the things we did right and to look at the things we did wrong. And this is a learning experience, and I intend to utilize it as that. To the citizens of Southbridge, I want to say thank you. People were very pleasant to us in the situation when they came to meet with our staff outside or at the community center. Citizens were very understanding, very polite, and felt good that we were making an attempt to provide the quality of services we could under the current situation. So I do agree, work has to be done. We have to look and do some more short-term planning, and I think we're more than willing to listen to councilors' advice, to hear your concerns, to address plans not only for town hall but for all town buildings, and look at how we could better deal with situations that are unknown. We clearly didn't know this was going to be a problem, and we dealt with it, I think, pretty well considering the situation, but you can always do better. With that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Steves?
Ron, I got a quick question for you. Is that long-term plan actually in writing, and can we get copies of it?
Absolutely. The emergency management plan is, as you know, we have an
I'm aware of
emergency
the-
management
I'm aware of
director.
the large
Yeah, the large
emergency
plan is in
yes.
writing. It's
Yes.
constantly being updated. As a matter of fact, the chief assigned a particular fireman to help update that plan.
Right.
So it is, as I'm told, and he's been working on it pretty regularly, so that plan is available in writing and available to all town councilors.
Thank you. Presentation swearing in, we have none. Citizens Forum. Is there anyone wishing to address the town council? Please come forward. Any resident wishing to address the council that is not on the agenda? Seeing none. Before we get into our regular agenda items, just to bear for the public's notice as well, due to the closing of the town hall and the rescheduling of meetings, trying to get everything together, many of these items did not go through subcommittee first, so there may be more discussion up here than normal, which I welcome. So just bear with us as we go through some of these items where we may be asking a lot of questions of them. So, Item 9, vote to reappoint L. David Cavino as constable for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to comment on this because this is something that was held in the past. And when I was asked about this gentleman, frankly, I didn't remember him very well since I originally met him in 2016 when he came to apply for this. This job effectively is a job of serving papers for people. And after I met him, we had talked quite a bit that day in the interview. He is bonded by the state. We've had full review by our police department. He has a good record. And he came for a reappointment. I apologize for not remembering him after a few years, but he is scheduled. We believe he's a good asset, and he'll, actually, for the businesses that get served the information, I think he'll be a good member to reappoint.
Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous for all present. Item 10, vote to reappoint Renata Kendall to the Council of Aging for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Any recommendation, Mr. Manager, because I'm not familiar
Just
with the person.
this person has been on the committee for a long period of time, well before I came. She's well-liked, well-respected, and she'll be a good asset to the community.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 11, vote to approve a transfer of $29,746.50 from and to the following accounts for urgent radio upgrades for the police and fire departments. Transfer from first account 1.210.5110 police salaries in the amount of $15,000, 1.220.55, I'm sorry, strike that, .5110 fire salaries in the amount of $14,746.50, to the following two accounts. 1.210.5856 police and safety equipment for $15,000, 1.220.5856 fire safety equipment in the amount of $14,746.50. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is coming directly to the council, not through PPP, due to the fact that when it was brought over to me, I know a memo was sent and I forwarded a response saying to just forward it to council because this is monies that are in this fiscal year, and the chiefs will articulate why they want to do this proposal, I believe.
Good evening, everybody. As we very well know, the public safety sector runs on emergency communications radio systems here in the town of Southbridge. Over the last year or 16 months, between the police department and the fire department, we've had some slight hiccups with the systems just due to increasing tree growth and things like that cause the topography of the town to get much more difficult for emergency communications of all the police and firefighters. Towards the beginning of the year this year, I contacted a radio vendor that we currently use in town named DNR Communications, and he also coordinated with another vendor that we use that handles our Black Mirror radio tower site called Hamden Communications. Both of these gentlemen did some surveying around town, and we were finding through both departments that the area of the Globe and West Street up through Denison Hill was an area of a very big issue with radio communications back to our dispatchers. Also, the other area of 169 down by the Shell station and out towards the town line was another area. Throughout the last month or so, I've been waiting for our estimates on getting pricing to get some of these areas looked at for increased communications. So I do have a letter that was in your packet that you should see. We decided to prioritize two of these products, two of these upgrades, and one being the real need is the Globe area. As I said, standing in the parking lot at the Big Bunny, at times a dispatcher can never hear the police officers and or the firefighters on their portable radios. That is a safety issue. Something could be going on bad there between the two different departments while they're on scene, and nobody will know. So we do have some issues with that. So we'd like to go ahead and try to transfer monies from my account, the salaries account, along with Chief Woodson's account, to make this project go for about $30,000.
Okay. Councilman, I do notice that is it not in our packet, correct?
Correct. There's
Yeah.
no letter in our packet for actually items 11 through 16. So, and you mentioned Hamden, and 13 has to do
Yep.
with Hamden too. So we don't have any letter from you or the police chief with regards to this.
I did, in the initial email chain, all this information was passed forward.
Right, and I did forward it to the town manager's office, so I'm not sure. It was copied to the town manager, so I'm not sure why it didn't make it to the
So it was
packet.
copied to the town manager and the chair of the town council, but not all the town councilors?
No, originally, just so, for point of record, the chief addressed an email to the town manager and copied me as chairman, saying that they needed a meeting to get this program done. I then forwarded that to, or responded back saying, given the time-sensitive nature of the end of the year fiscal year, that we wouldn't be able to schedule a PPP meeting, to put that, make sure that this information got onto the agenda and we would push it up to this meeting. And that was my involvement in it.
Right. So I'm not questioning that, I'm just questioning, we never got the letter. So the letter was never forwarded to us about this agenda item, so, and I understand it doesn't have to go through the subcommittee, we can
Right.
vet it all out here, but we have nothing to look at to vet it. So that's just my concern. And the town manager should have probably passed that information along to all the town councilors as well. So I'm not putting blame on you, Mr. Chair. I'm just putting blame on the lack of the communication for this item.
Yes, thank you. Chief, yes, sir. Go ahead. So I do have the memo, and I apologize that it's not in here. So there was a memo from DNR Communications about the coverage area. This was what was attached to the email that I printed off. So and it did go to the town manager's office, because I said, make sure that, so that we can make sure that follow up on the conversation, we get it done at the town council meeting. And it was the Commonwealth of Massachusetts standard contract form for DNR applications attached to the documentation to the town hall with 2 quotations for the amount of money with a bill to the Southbridge Police Department and the Southbridge Fire Department. I'll gladly pass that around if anybody wants to look at the quotes or letters. It's sent to the town manager's office, Mr. Manager.
Just wondering if it came from you.
So, and it was copied to you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Adams. Councilor Adams.
Counselor Daniel.
Councilor Dan?
Yes, through you to the chief. Can you explain a little bit of what these upgrades are? Is it radios? Are you getting repeaters? What exactly is happening?
Through the chair to Mr.
Yes,
Daniel.
Chief, go ahead.
It's a little bit of everything. It's a 2 antennas that will be placed up at Harrington Hospital with a radio in the elevator shaft of the hospital, and then that will be beamed back to our tower behind the fire station, which will go inside our computer system in what we call vote the best receiving site. So any 3 of our, well, this will be a 3rd site into our system. So whichever system receives the signal the best will come to the dispatcher. So right now we are limited completely in that area. West Street, like I said, West Street School with, where they are over there, and that whole area is sketchy at times. Especially now that the leaves have come back out on the trees, it's much worse this year.
Councilor DePietro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have faith in both our fire chief and our police chief, and I know they've been working on this for at least a couple of years, maybe even prior to that, while I've been part of this council, and I get it, but 2 concerns. Number 1, just to be a little bit more transparent, the wording of the agenda item should make it a little more obvious. It's $29,746.50 from each department.
No, that's not correct. It's $15,000 from one, $14,000 from another. The total cost of this project is $29,000.
That's the total cost.
Total cost.
Well, then it's rather confusing reading the agenda item.
The first 2 are from, and the second 2.
2.
Oh, from and to. All right. That aside, this money is obviously coming out of funds that both departments were keeping in reserve, and I'm wondering how that would affect them.
Chief?
Through Mr. Chair, mine is remaining salaries money for the last 6 weeks or so. Lieutenant LaRochelle has retired, so some of that money is there, and then I've also had 1 other open position that's unfilled at this point. So within the last 6 weeks, I've had some leftover money from those two spots. It won't affect my salary moving forward for the next 6 days. Should be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman?
Thank you.
Chief, did you want to respond to your account?
If I could, through you, Mr. Chair, it's a similar circumstance in my department. Police officer retired and 1 lateral transferred, so we have money left over for salary.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So the quotation for the police department is $14,746.50, as well as the fire department, but we're transferring $15,000 from police for this. Why? And the quotation is the exact same as the fire department.
Well, originally, I think I'll defer to the chief, but I believe it was to have some kind of contingency in case there was
Correct.
any additional money.
So the small amount of money is that the little extra money that's in there would probably cover any small, slight extra wiring or antenna work that needs to be done, clearing of any debris. I do know Harrington has multiple antennas up there that they've asked us to help with, trying to repair or replace some of them while we're there. It's in cooperation with a good partner here in Southbridge to make this all happen. So yeah, we did have to build in a little bit of a contingency to make that happen.
I think that should be stated somewhere or something, because, I mean, the quotations are exactly the same, but the money that we're voting on tonight isn't, so.
For council, I knew this was going to happen because originally the item was going to be vote to transfer $30,000 and then have in the original motion, and I asked that it be changed to reflect the quotations, and I understand there was some additional money, so that's why I believe, Karen, I believe you had given the original memo as to what to transfer. Was that true or not? And I believe any existing money stays in that account, so if they don't spend it, it's not,
I
it gives
understand,
them a
but he's saying
contingency.
that there may be antennas now up there that we may be repairing for the hospital, and that's what that
Not for the
little-
hospital.
No, not for
this
the hospital,
project.
for us to fix.
For us.
Yeah.
Well, it should be noted somewhere then, in there, or it doesn't, wouldn't it have to come back to council? I don't know, so,
So this project, you never know what's going to happen when you get into a project like this, especially with telecommunications. You are correct that both of these quotations are for the exact amount, but it was easier, I guess, at this point, just to conference with Ms. Harnois.
Just so you know, Councilman, I did have that concern that, because I know how we've operated over this last year, that there may be some questions on that, and I did ask why that would be 15,000 as opposed to the exact amount. We can amend it to make it the exact amount or not, but that
well,
was
for
the
me, I
question.
believe it should be the exact amount, and if they need more money for other antennas, they should come back to the council.
They won't have time, because this is money coming out of the end of this fiscal year's money. So this is money that can only be appropriated and used till June 30th. So they're taking money out of the existing budget and transferring it. That's why.
And if I could, through you, Mr. Chair, I think one of the issues, when I got this bill, I rounded it to $15,000.
Right, you did.
Because it was $14,000 and some change. So when I spoke with Ms. Harnois, I just said, yes, I can cover the $15,000 out of salary. And that might be why it's written on the agenda the way that it is right now. Where the police department's contributing $15,000 and the fire department's contributing a lesser amount. But those two amounts total will equal the quote of the $29,746.50 on the agenda. So I don't know if that's causing any confusion, but when I first saw the quote, I said, yes, $15,000, and speaking with the fire chief and the finance director. Does that make it worse, better? I don't.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Well, I can appreciate what Councilor Mann is mentioning, because I do agree with her. I think that as long as we're explicit within our minutes, we're more than covered. You know, I understand that we need to spend this money, that's fine. I don't think this is quote-unquote urgent. I think we've seen this coming, so I wonder about the wording for the motion or for the agenda item. I understand urgency. It sounds like we've had some planning, and I wonder if this was covered in any part of capital planning.
Chief?
At this point, I had just received the figures within the last couple of weeks. The quote is from June 10th. That's when these vendors got to me and got me the information. And with having some, yes, it could have been a capital item, but we would have had to wait another whole year. You know, safety of our people are very important. I mean, this is definitely.
Let me finish. Just to continue.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, I get it. I don't think anyone up here questions safety, Chief. My concern is that we're classifying this as an urgent radio upgrade for each of the departments, but I don't think that it's a surprise. I think that this came up, I'm sure that I heard talk of this a while ago, as Councilor DePietro had alluded, and I think I just sound like the bad guy by sticking a finger and pointing it over at the police and the fire chief here, but June 10th was our last council meeting, and I think that you all knew about this a little earlier. This council supports the police and fire department. We don't have any problem. I just have a problem with the wording. You know, when it comes to urgent, I don't want to make anybody look bad, but that just kind of bothers me. And on top of it, you know, we live in a community where we know we have communication issues, as we've seen out by the high school. I don't think this comes as a surprise. I fully support this expenditure. I have an issue with the wording in the agenda item. Mr. Chairman, that's my only point, and I'll leave it alone after that. Thanks.
Just in response to that, Councilor, that was the way the email read, was urgent upgrades. I understand your use of the urgent. It is not a surprise that we have been talking about radio issues. I look at it as a safety issue for officer and firefighter safety So while the term urgent may not be the needed correct term, it is a necessary, I would think, maybe perhaps to the fire and police chief, to them that's an urgent radio upgrade that they can get this done for their officer and firefighter safety, especially given the climate that we live in this world today. I think I had, who did I have? I had Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions, actually. First off, I was curious, how does this purchase, affect the capital purchase that we haven't formally approved yet, but we've debated at subcommittee already about radios for both of you guys?
For the police department anyway, through you, Mr. Chair, it has zero impact. The radios that I'm trying to purchase for the police department are all portable radios attached to the belts. This is more towers, voters, repeaters, and things like that.
This is for the portable radios go to these towers?
Yes, but as far as the impact, this would improve town-wide coverage, specifically in the west globe end of the town.
Right.
We've got other major issues with, I should say, important issues that need to be addressed as far as radio coverage, and we're working on those.
And that was actually one of the follow-up questions I was going to ask is, so how does, you've mentioned that we've talked about some of those radio issues overall for a while now, and the memo mentions them too. Do we have any rough estimates of what the overall improvements to the radio system would be, how long they would cost, or how much they would cost, how long they would take to do? This is just one part of the town that we're talking about covering here, and it's obviously, it's an important part of town, no question, but it's still, we're still, as you just said a little while ago, we're still talking about a bunch of other more or less dead zones, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are several dead spots in the community, and we're working on improving those. One is the high school.
Right.
And a rough guesstimate is between $30,000 and $60,000 to get that work done.
Okay.
But that's, again, we kind of prioritize our projects, and we have some coverage at the schools. I've got a police officer there every day, so we do have communications, but it's not where we want it to be. Mm-hmm. It will be, but it's not there yet.
Okay. Also, I'm just curious, why is it that the quotes that we're getting are, all of the items are identical? How come the police and the fire departments can't use the same equipment? Why do you need the identical equipment for both departments?
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Chief.
So we run by identical systems, so
Right.
you need two of each. So that's why they're both identical. So the fire will get one side, and then the police department will get the other side.
Why can't you guys both use the same system?
We do use a VHF system, which is a wide band radio system.
Right.
We're assigned public safety frequencies. My frequency is different than his, so each frequency has to have similar products, but equal.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And also, I was, let's see, and how does tying this stuff in and putting this in now impact or how will it be impacted by the dispatch centralization, if at all?
This will enhance the dispatcher's ability to hear our personnel out in the Globe area. It's going to increase it quite a bit.
But it won't have anything. It won't have any effect on the centralization project itself.
Not necessarily, but it does, because that's. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but yeah, whatever frequency comes into the fire station or the police station, when it gets moved down to the central dispatch, it should be the same frequency but better.
Right. Okay.
Are you all set, Council?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
There. Council Adams?
Just one question for the chiefs. That contract says, or the extension contract says, it was signed in October 2018. Am I correct on that one?
Yeah, it was the previous quote. Yeah, this is a sample of the contract. So I asked the vendor if he was on the state bid list for procurement. This was a contract that we had used before, so we will just have to get another contract signed by.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, he is on the state bid list, and we're using state bid list prices.
Got it. Thanks, Chief.
Anything further on this side? Go back. Council Manor and then Council DePietro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. I think you just answered one of my questions, but I'm a little confused. Is this radio upgrades or tower upgrade?
They're both kind of the same. Because on the tower, we have radios that are attached to them. So yes, we're going to have a radio receiver at Harrington, and then we have work being done on the tower behind the fire station. So it's kind of both to make these two systems talk to each other.
Okay. And that's the same for the police department, too?
Correct.
Right, so it's not just a tower, because my question, we just had a new tower a couple years ago at the entrance, coming into Southbridge from Sturbridge. And that was supposed to help with the communication.
Sturbridge, no.
Not
No,
Sturbridge, you weren't fire
Dudley's.
chief then?
The
No.
only tower we have is the Black Mare site.
We did something a couple years ago.
Yeah, we did something a couple years ago, and it was at the entrance coming into town from Southbridge. Maybe about 4 years ago. No? No. We did something with the tower. I'm certain.
The only, maybe to clarify it a little bit better, they're not putting a tower up like a cell tower or a tower that you would see, holding up a radio station. They're going to add pieces to the Harrington Hospital elevator shaft, but shoot the signal to the tower behind the fire station. So it's a tower and radio project.
Okay.
You have to have radios to work with the tower and the antennas.
Okay. Okay, that's why I was confused on that. But the contract does show that it's November 2018 through October of 2019. And you said that you were going to get an updated contract?
Through the chair. Usually, anytime we do any of these procurement things, we get a new contract each time anyways. It's just easier to make sure that the vendors are all up to speed and we have the appropriate paperwork anyways.
Okay. I'm still not comfortable with the discrepancies. Thank you.
Councilor DePietro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This council has been extremely supportive and working with both the chiefs and the vendors to make this project happen. At this point, and my colleagues have certainly asked the appropriate questions this evening, $30,000 is not a deal breaker to continue this. And I would recommend that this be approved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Steves?
Yeah, one more quick question. What is your time frame for this project to be completed?
The time frame for installation?
Yeah.
Within the next 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3
I
months.
just want to remind you that this same contractor is working on our central dispatch project too at the same time. So there's a lot of pieces to the wheel here to make this all work. But yes, 2 to 3 months.
Thank you. Any further?
Just
Councilor Adams?
one, I'd like to get a copy of this as soon as we can.
I'll
Thank
forward
you.
the email.
That's all I have.
Yep. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Vote to approve a transfer of $6,000 from Town Council Reserve number 1.132.5781 to unemployment compensation number 1.940.5172.0.718 to cover unemployment costs for May and June. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Could somebody explain this first?
Hey, the finance director's coming up.
Mr. Town Manager, do you have an explanation for us?
No, there's a couple of transfers that are coming through that were requested by the finance director, and she's here tonight to explain those items.
Thank you. Council Manager, did you have a question, or is that what you were?
That's what I was going to,
Okay,
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I apologize if I interrupted.
Good evening. So the town has a former employee who's the town has a former employee who is on unemployment. So we budgeted only $15,000 for the year. We usually don't use that much because we don't have anyone on unemployment. What we do right now, so the $6,000 would be to cover for the months of May and June. And that's an estimate from the treasurer's office.
Okay. Any further discussion? Adequate monies in council reserve, Ms. Harris?
Excuse me?
Adequate monies in the council reserve? Adequate monies in the council reserve?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. There's still $28,296.
Thank
That's
you.
minus, oh, sorry.
Did
Sorry,
Councilor Adams?
Mr. Chair. Is that's after the 6,000?
No, that's prior.
That is prior to
Okay,
the
thank you.
6,000. Does
That includes all the transfers from the last meeting?
That's correct.
Thank you. Anything further? Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor DePietro?
Yes?
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Unanimous of all present. Item 13, vote to approve a transfer of $2,400 from Town Council Reserve number 1.132.5781 to Town prior year unpaid bill number 3.589.5899.133.9095 to cover prior year costs due to Hampton Communications Corporation for the police and fire departments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Council Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I would really have liked to have seen something in our packet on this so we could see, you know, there's nothing in our packet. Number 12, 13, 11, you go all the way down to 16. There's nothing in our packets for any of these agenda items. And there was no discussion at a subcommittee, but we don't have anything in our packets. And I understand why not for the subcommittees, but I don't understand why there's nothing in our packets. And perhaps the town manager can explain that. I don't know.
Mr. Manager?
So just at the end of a year, the finance director goes through accounts and looks for areas where there's going to be shortages. There's not going to be enough funding to support various activities like the unemployment thing. And she's come forward to recommend those. They probably, had there been subcommittee meetings, there probably would have been more background information presented, but as it is, she is here to explain the reason for these transfers, and I think they're rather simple to understand.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, for that explanation of yours, but it still would have been nice to have these in our packets so we could understand them better. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Ms. Heiners?
Okay, thank you. The fire chief brought to my attention, there's a memorandum of understanding between the town of Southbridge and Hampton Communications Corporation. And there's rental that was to be paid starting in fiscal year 13 of $600 a year. And it has to do with the communication on the tower that's located on Blackmere Road in Dudley, Mass, that the fire chief had mentioned earlier. Now, when we looked back in the records, we could find that a payment was made for fiscal 13 and fiscal 16. But for whatever reason, fiscal 14, 15, 17, and 18, the rental payments were not made. So the fire chief brought me the invoices from those years, and they agreed that it was going to be paid, that going forward, it's going to be paid 50-50, half by the police and half by the fire. So the total owed to Hampton Communications is $2,400 for those prior year bills.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did Hampton Communications contact us in the past, in the years that the invoices weren't paid, or have they contacted us at all?
I'm going to let the chief answer a little bit, but my understanding is that they never sent us the invoices.
Then
So
why should we pay
that's
them?
why. Okay, let me.
No invoices.
Mr. Chairman, to explain that is that, yes, they did reach out to me with past invoices that were not paid by previous administrators from the police and fire department, along with, it's a good substantial amount of money with this. But I will tell you right now, this Blackmere site is the backbone of our system. The system we just voted for a few items ago to put into place. Blackmere is the highest system antenna that we have that reaches the ambulances in Worcester. That's why we have it. That through the Mass Ambulance Association in OEMS, you have to have direct communications to your fire alarm dispatcher from the hospitals that you transport to, and we transport to Worcester. So that is one side of it. The antenna world is a crazy world. I can't explain it. These guys can pull things off towers left and right. I'm afraid that, if we don't pay this, he could basically shut us off tomorrow, which would limit our service completely. We'd be downtown and downtown only, and then we would be in violation of it. And I'm not trying to do this as a scare tactic. These guys work in conjunction with their own property, their own antennas. They pick and choose who they want to put on these facilities, and that's kind of where we sit today.
Thank you, Fire Chief Normandin. We have to pay the bill. We have to pay the bill in order to continue with the services from them. But it would be nice to see the invoices, you know, or when did they reach out to you about this?
I received the invoices, I think the first set of invoices came to me in February, but then again, I asked him to split them out between the police and the fire department so we could do 50-50, because we thought that was, between Chief Woodson and myself, thought was the best way to kind of recoup what was lost over the years before. So by the time he got these invoices back to me, it was probably mid-May. So we've been kind of holding on to see what we could do. I talked to the finance director, and we knew that we had to come to council to make this all happen, to get these voted, because they're past invoices.
Well, you know, I'm kind of disappointed because you knew about them in February, you got them in May. We haven't even seen them, and now we have to vote on something we're not even seeing. So that's all. Thank you.
Council Steves?
Yeah, I was curious about this because I would say, so that was the first invoice that you saw from these people of about these overdue years was this year.
Correct.
I believe, maybe you can, I don't know if Ron can answer this or Karen can. It doesn't state law put a maximum that we can go back on paying overdue bills? I want to say it's like 3 years. So some of those bills may not even be payable by law. I'd have to double check it because I can't remember the number.
I don't know
think
what
there is
reference
one.
that would be.
I think there is. If we haven't gotten a bill, how can we, I mean, how can we as a community, or let me rephrase that, how can a person who's running a business decide, oh, by the way, we haven't gotten money from these people, we haven't bothered to send them a bill for years. I mean, how do we know that, are we sure that we didn't pay them years ago?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, it actually is our responsibility. We've signed the contract, so it is our responsibility to make sure that we make the payments. We had a similar situation where we store the Christmas decorations. We've asked numerous times to get an invoice. They don't send it to us, but it's our obligation to pay for it because we have items, you know, in their building. And I did the research. I went all the way back, and that's why when I found that we had paid 13 and 15, but we didn't pay those years in between and the years after.
13 and 15.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I did send to the town manager's office copies of these invoices and the contract for subcommittee. I believe what happened is probably in the chaos of town hall being closed, that it just wasn't followed up to attach it to here. So it was going to be sent to the subcommittee, so I apologize that it didn't get all the way there.
Thank you. Do you have, so let me ask you this. You do have copies of that materials?
I have a copy of the contract, and I have a copy of all of the invoices.
Okay. I believe we'll have adequate time to add this to the agenda on Thursday night, so I'll entertain a motion to postpone. Have you make sure that that information gets forward to Yvonne.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor of postponing until Thursday evening? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. So if you just get that documentation, we'll get it right on that agenda, and that way we can look through that information. Thank you. Mr. Manager, make sure that material gets out into council as soon as possible, along with the email relative to the radio upgrades. Item 14, vote to approve a transfer of $5,000 from heating oil number 1.190.5212.99.736 to streetlights 1.297.5200.0.741 to cover costs through the end of the fiscal year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Hunter?
Okay, Karen's gone.
Karen.
Okay, if I could, as the town manager was explaining, I ran some budget reports. I was looking through the balances to make sure that there were enough funds to cover expenses through the end of the fiscal year. And I found that streetlights is going to be a little bit short. Just to give you a little history in streetlights, the costs have actually come down since we've gone into the National Grid Credit Program there with the Land of the Sky vendor. In fiscal year 17, we spent $198,000 on streetlights. Fiscal year 18, $160,800. And this year to date, we have $131,000 so far with 1 month left. So I went through to take a look, and I think that we're going to be a little bit short on the account, but we are still saving money. But I think what happened is we reduced the budget a little bit too much, anticipating a little bit more in savings than what was actually realized. So we're actually asking for $5,000.
What was budgeted? How much was the budget for the year?
142,000. And we're at 131,000 right now, and we're averaging about 11 to 12,000 a month.
And of
And
course,
there's-
any unexpended money will go back to free cash anyway, correct?
Correct, and right now, in the oil account, there's $10,460. That's remaining with no additional bills due.
10,000 what?
$10,460.
I don't know if you would be able to answer this. Do you know if the tanks were topped off under this year's cost for oil? Did we top
Yes,
them
we
off
did,
in
and
this budget?
actually, the DPW, they're transferring some oil from a holding tank where they had some into their other tank, so yes, we're in good shape with that.
Any questions from council? All those in favor of transfer? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 15, vote to approve a transfer of $8,709.78 from Town Council Reserve Number 1.132.5781 to sick leave buyback, Number 1.910.5151.0.707, to cover an unanticipated retirement for FY 2019. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, we try to anticipate how many retirements we're going to have for a fiscal year, so when we're putting together the budget, I send an email out to the department saying, how many anticipated retirements do you have at the upcoming year? We budgeted for 4 retirements, we actually had 5 in fiscal year 19. I believe there was an additional police officer who retired.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor DePietro?
Yes?
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Unanimous for all present. Item 16, thank you, Karen. Item 16, vote to ratify the agreement between the Town of Southbridge and Jennifer A. Reynolds of Woodstock, Connecticut, to provide low-impact aerobics classes for 100 citizens of Southbridge aged 60 and over for a total amount of $6,900 payable in 46 weekly payments and funded by the Council of Aging. Is there
move.
Second.
discussion? There is a letter in the file.
Yeah.
Councilman?
Yes, it was my mistake. It was through item number 15. We didn't have anything on.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 17, vote to ratify the renewal agreement for Springbrook KVS effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 in the amount of $49,964. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Town Council is well aware that we're going to be running 2 financial systems while we're converting over to Munis. There is information in your packet about this, but this is just to extend it 1 year or until October 2020 to keep both systems running until the conversion is completed.
Councilor Steves?
I have one quick question. I'm reading through the documentation. The one thing that jumped out at me was it mentions hosting variable billed monthly. How much has that been?
I'm sorry, say it?
How much is the cost? It mentions that hosting is variable thing that's billed monthly in the contract. And I'm just curious, how much has that cost us?
Councilor Steves, I don't have that information as part of this packet. I can provide it for you tomorrow if you'd like.
But do you know, Karen?
Mr. Chair, if I could, it's averaging right now about $4,600 a month, but as the number of users reduce, because July 1st we're going live with Munis, that cost will be coming down.
That's just an idea.
And I also wanted to point out too, if I could, originally, this contract here says it's $49,964. When Will and I first got the contract, it was about $60,000. And we went through and made sure that we were using all the modules because we found an attendance that was being billed that we didn't use. So we had them take it off. And if you notice the first 3 items, we reduced the amount of the period from 7/1 to 12/31. And that will be, after that date, 12/31, then we will still have access to the system, but we won't need coverage for support any longer. So we were able to reduce this contract down to the $49,964.
So, Karen, are you going to, so you're all set to go live with Munis July 1 on your accounting software? Is that correct?
Yes, it's going to be on the financials, so we're going to have accounts payable starting for fiscal year '20 on the new system. We still need to finish out fiscal '19 in KVS. So that's why we still need for a period of time to have some support, just in case something were to happen there. So we'll have to close the books in KVS and then bring the balances over to the new Munis system.
So you're not running both systems concurrently for FY20 outside of closing out FY19, correct? And bringing the balances forward?
Not for the financials, but we actually are probably for the cash receipts because we thought what's best, how are we going to bring in the information? Because we're not converting right now on the receipt side. So
Okay.
anything that comes through the treasurer's collector still has to come in somehow into the Munis system. So we figured we'd keep it in there, we'd probably post it through KVS and then import the journal entries. So we will be doing some concurrent work.
Okay. Any further? Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I just like to know, this was budgeted for, Karen, I take it?
Yes,
And-
correct. It's budgeted in our data processing.
Okay, I figured as much.
Yes, yep.
I don't want to make it a long question or a long answer, but I know we had some issues with implementation with the other vendor, but you're comfortable that we'll be able to complete the transition by entering into this renewal agreement without any more glitches from Munis?
With any more, I'm sorry, say that again, with
Any
any
more
more?
glitches? I know we had some hiccups with communication with support.
Right, I mean, we're going to have to continue down the path. We actually had some glitches the last couple of days. We weren't able to get into our live environment, but everything still looks good to go as of July 1st.
Excellent.
You know, we still have the agreement in place that the school will continue to pay up to half the costs, and we still have that capital money that we set aside, and with this data processing money, we're on the right track.
I'm glad to hear it's
Yeah.
it's going well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vote to authorize the town manager to accept the FAA and Mass DOT grant offers upon issuance for the Airport Fuel Farm Project and execute a notice of award to Dependable Service Company Incorporated in the amount of $562,600. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to call up John from Stantec to come up and explain this. There's issues involved in this particular project, and we'd like to bring you up to date as to what is occurring. John Henry is the, I guess, project manager, all-around leader of Stantec as it relates to the Southbridge Airport.
Mr. Chair, Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak. As Rod said, I'm John Henry, the project manager of Stantec. We're the on-call consultant for the airport. Is everybody familiar with what this project is on the council? Anybody need a refresher, or are we good?
Council Lazo, do you need any up-to-date on the fuel farm project? We're good. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so basically what the idea is behind this agenda item is, beginning of June, I sent a draft motion to the town offices to be discussed at a general government subcommittee meeting, which was supposed to occur last week, obviously with the town council, with the
You might
town
have to
offices
speak up a
being
little bit
closed.
because it's very difficult to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. With the town offices being closed, obviously we didn't have that meeting. So I sent a draft motion, which this is kind of a portion of that motion. The intent, what I'm trying to do is to present motions to the council that will, within certain parameters, authorize the town manager to execute our contract, execute a notice of award, receive grants, as long as it stays within certain parameters of the funding that was already authorized by the council. So we don't have to come in front of you guys 4 times every time we get a new piece of information that we're already expecting. So this motion is a kind of a cut version of what I had sent in. In the meantime, prior to, between when I sent this motion in and now, we've learned that the FAA grant that we were previously authorized by local FAA was not approved in Washington. So our FAA grant is not approved. We had a meeting today with MassDOT, and they are entertaining or investigating opportunities to shift some money around to cover that portion of the project. So I think they encouraged me to still come here and present this motion anyway to try to get approval if the MassDOT could fund the project, it would authorize the town manager to virtually accept the grant, execute the notice of award, and execute the contract within those parameters, provided that the previously authorized commitment from the town is not exceeded. So that's the intent of this motion.
Okay, could I ask you, so is there any contract before the airport commission right now that is in need of this, or how long till you find out from Mass DOT about the alternative funding for this project?
Well, we had a call today. Their end of their fiscal year is the same as you guys. It's June 30th, so it'll probably be a month, maybe the end of August, before we actually have wording on whether they'll have funding to cover this or not.
So this is not a thing that needs to be addressed tonight. What I'm saying is
That's
I'd rather
correct.
refer it back to general government to have a really good conversation before we have a vote tonight on something of this implication that we give that much authority to the town manager without really vetting out what the process is going to be. I think we really have to have a clear conversation as to, that's my humble opinion, that, okay, if we're going to allow a notice of award to go out and then authorize to execute contract, that's a whole host of things that I think we really have to vet out and develop a policy as to how that would proceed. That's my opinion. So I would recommend that we just refer this back to general government, and you can come back and explain and articulate to the general government so that we have a better understanding as opposed to trying to do it.
Right, if I may, I mean, that's my intent. What I'd like to do is work with, members of the council or a designated member of the council, somebody from the town offices, whoever it takes, so that I can, develop a list of all the items that we're going to expect in a certain project, hopefully get those authorized for the town manager to execute those items without having to come back. It takes, my time, it takes the council's time, but most importantly, it takes time away from the constructability of the project, which, in New England is a relatively short window sometimes. So that's the idea, is to try to expedite the window of construction. So I look forward to that and have the opportunity to.
And if I think anything this year, this council has been very eager to make sure that we develop policies and processes that we can get things done in a quick and efficient legal manner that covers both the contractor and the town. So I think we'll get that scheduled right up once the new subcommittees are named after July 1st. And we can set up a meeting through the manager's office for that general government and work on that. Any other councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The subcommittees are actually through
They're still
the
good,
end
yeah,
of
right
July. So we could technically have a general government meeting, after July 1st. I mean, we still have-
that's fine.
And we'll still have our citizen members, too.
Right. So, Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually thought this was going to be a result of this motion after talking to John about this. Just to be very clear, there's no way that I would be approving any contract until the grant was in hand. The total grant dollars, be it from FAA or from the state, doesn't matter. There's no way I'm going to approve any contract that doesn't have the full amount awarded to us in advance. So I have no objections to the concerns of town council, and will, as soon as that we do have the grant in hand, even if we had to call a special meeting for that, I'd be happy to bring that as quickly as possible to the town council for consideration.
You good with that?
Well, hopefully, what I'd like to do is come prior to receiving the grant.
No, we'll get it scheduled up.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Council Manager said, the general government, the subcommittees are still in place. There may be different members on as of the first week of July with the new people coming onto the board. But we'll get it scheduled up. The chair can schedule something right up with the manager's office right now.
Very good.
We'll get that scheduled, okay?
Thanks.
There will be no delay on our part to move this forward.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
So should we vote to
Councilman.
postpone this? Through you, Mr. Chair, because we opened it?
Yeah, vote to postpone and refer back to general government.
So moved. Second.
Motion to refer?
Motion to refer? Okay.
Second.
All those in favor of referring this back to general government? Unanimous, all present. Thank you. Vote to accept the Mass DOT grant in the amount of $1,912.80 for the purpose of purchasing commercial-grade battery-operated handheld landscape equipment for the Southbridge Municipal Airport. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just, Mr. Chairman, the grant packages, the grant document is in your package. Obviously, it's landscaping equipment. If you want to know more detail about the equipment, the airport manager is here. But it is obviously to control the area around the airport.
Thank you. And just as a note, I personally think we have one of the best airports, local airports in the Commonwealth. So anything we can do to upgrade and get that continued is certainly a plus. Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 20, vote to ratify the CDBG grant extension, CDBG grant contract extension from December 2019 to June 2020, and authorize the town manager to sign the letter to DHCD requesting the extension. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Chair. Just real quick, wanted to let you know the next three items went through P&D on the 19th, all unanimous. At this point in time, I'll let the town manager brief it, or Peg.
Mr. Town Manager?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call up Peg, our CDBG coordinator, to explain the next three items.
For those councils that don't know Peg, if you want to introduce yourself, because you're relatively new and first time opportunity to be before the town and the council, so.
Chairman, councilors, thank you for having me. Peg Dean, I started at the end of January as the CDBG coordinator. I took over for Rose Canoyer, and happily she's still in the office now as the admin assistant, which is wonderful. You're familiar with the CDBG contract. Certain assumptions with the 20. The assumption it's fiscal year 18 contract. Majority of the contract is the Central Street parking lot infrastructure. Just to clarify, does anyone need an overview on where we are with fiscal year 17 Central Street parking lot, fiscal year 18?
If you have a quick brief as to the status of the paving or whatever you can on that Central Street for the public, because I'm sure you could articulate better than we have since you're heading that project.
Sure. We'd had scheduled for 2 weeks ago to finish the paving. Unfortunately, we've had to continue to reschedule for numerous factors. Wednesday is the next slated date to do the paving, 1 day, worst case 2-day project. And then we button up the striping and we finish some of these wheel stops within a few days of that. So that's fiscal year 17 Central Street parking lot. End of the contract is June 30. Then you go into your fiscal year 18 contract, phase 2. And that's why we're here. So phase 2, we bid the phase 2 for our Central Street parking lot improvements to finish the flat work and get the landscape done. We only received one bid, unfortunately, and it came in $88,000 over budget. To increase the pool of bidders and aim for better bidding timelines, the engineers recommended to break out the flat work and the landscape into 2 discrete phases. So we're aiming to do phase 2 this fall, September to November. We'll do phase 3 next spring, bid it in February. We'll do it April to June. So in order to do that, we just need to do a few we need to take care of a few technical motions. So one, we have to extend the CDBG contract from December to June. We have to then, for the following motion, if you'd like me to get into it, because it layers on it. Excuse me. The GCG Associates is our current engineer. They're the design and the construction oversight. And so we would need to extend their contract as well. So that would go from December to June. Also, we need to cover the costs for the additional phase and the construction oversight in that. We have within our budget an extra some odd $18,000 that is uncommitted that we can put towards that phase 3. And then the additional, we're going to move from admin, which was loose because the admin assistant position retired last June and wasn't filled until February.
Councilor DePietro.
Mr. Chair, not to put a black cloud in the project because it's going to be absolutely beautiful when it's done, but I do have to share the questions that I've heard from so many citizens. How can they put the dollar store up, that entire project ready to rock and roll in a matter of, going to be ready in another week or so, and we're looking into 2020 to finish this little project? And it's a legitimate question.
Sure, through the chair, if I may. As a mini entitlement community, you're only eligible for typically somewhere between 700 and 900 a year. You'll see the trends over the years, it's averaged 825. And so when you had the design completed back in 2016 by PAR, the total project was 1.3, and so we knew that we were going to have to extend it into a 2-year project. That was the goal. Unfortunately, because your fiscal year 17 fall was very wet, your fiscal year 17 extended from December of 2018 to June of 2019, and now you're here doing the same thing, but for different circumstances. And so that just continues to build on the timeline.
Thank you. Council Steves?
Yeah, one quick question. A few minutes ago, I thought you just said that the existing Phase 1 contract will expire at the end of this month, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you sure that they can actually get the work done, given the delays that have happened before the end of this month?
Without burdening you with any of the minutia, you're using $195,000 from the capital article, or the free cash article that was voted back in 2017 to be able to supplement the project.
Right.
And so that's not bound by the performance date of the contract.
Okay.
Council Love?
I'm the new counselor.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
You as well.
I don't know if this is proper to ask a construction question, but there were a couple people during the campaign who were asking me questions. Do we have less parking spaces in this parking lot than before the contracted project?
Yes.
How many do we lose?
I believe it was 8.
And there is a social club that had a handicap access that no longer has it there. I went down, I looked at it, the door looks lower than the grade of the sidewalk, the entrance to the building. And I know this social club put in handicap access inside the building and stuff. I was wondering, is there any way, or is it too far along, to amend something to accommodate that social club?
I have been working intimately with the Order of the Redmen to try to address some of their concerns. I sympathize with the additional distance that will be required for them to access proper ADA, but the existing situation was that you were having a ramp come out of the back door of the Order of the Redmen into a traffic flow, which is an inherent risk for the town. And so that needed to be corrected during the design. The way they've corrected it, you're correct that the door is now sub-level to the sidewalk. That is all a pedestrian plaza, so it is ADA compliant to go upgrade onto the sidewalk, and then they can either access properly down towards Fideli's, where the new handicap parking spots will be, and the proper handicap ramp, or they can go the opposite direction towards the alley that goes up towards Hamilton Street.
What is the distance between these areas that you can get onto the sidewalk to the front door of the Redmond?
I would estimate probably 50 feet to the Hamilton alley, and maybe double that to the handicap ramp. But should I ask the engine, Heather? Yes? So, okay. So I think that's a fair estimation, but I can't promise. I am happy to go do some measurements and get back to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Council DePietro?
Mr. Chair, this is my last opportunity to beat a dead horse here, and I brought this up in subcommittee several times. The project, the handicap access is certainly in compliance. Nobody's questioning that. You've just got a whole bunch of taxpayers who want their damn rent back that you stole from them.
I understand.
Why can't we consider that?
Mr. Manager?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And the answer is we did consider that. We actually brought back the information to the design people to see if it was possible, and it just simply isn't ADA compliant what they would like done. The new engineering documents that are done are ADA compliant. We have to follow the law. So, while we would love to do something to help them, we are tied by the requirements under ADA to do it appropriately and safely. Having people with wheelchairs get off into as she said, a drive-through area is dangerous and would not meet ADA.
If I could follow on that,
Yes,
Mr.
Council.
Chair?
Absolutely.
It's not so much that that ramp has to be designated a handicap access. All they're asking for is a curb cut and be able to wheel their, the equipment in, for if they're having bands come in and that sort of thing. Older folks that want to get dropped at the door and don't want to.
Mr. Manager?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask Heather if I don't answer this correctly, but I think trying to make it accessible for handicapped people and not having it be ADA compliant would make it a liability to the town if somebody were to get hurt in that situation. So if you're going to make something ADA compliant, you have to follow the law. You can't kind of do a piecemeal kind of thing that would open the town up to liability. If okay, the agreement is what I'm saying. I just want to be clear.
Council Lazo?
Just a point of information. If there was a handicap access there before, if you check with the police records, nobody ever got run over there. Nobody got hurt using it. And it was very accommodating to the social club to have it there for the handicap. So common sense would say, put it back. Because if nobody's getting hurt with it, and I really am concerned about the liability, as the manager said. But there are a lot bigger issues on sidewalks in Southbridge. We should be really worried about liability than putting a handicap ramp to accommodate our taxpayers at the Indian Social Club. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, well present. Vote to ratify the contract amendment with GCG Associates Engineering for an additional $29,290, bringing the new total to $66,055 from the previous amount of $36,765 for engineering construction oversight by transferring $13,326 from Activities 9, parentheses, General Administration, to 6E, parentheses, Infrastructure, and extending GCG's contract from December 31st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Manager?
Mr. Chairman, I think Peggy actually explained this as part of her first part of her explanation. It's for the oversight of the contract for the extension of the length of time needed as a result of the weather and the rain and everything else. So this is really just to have the project management going forward until the end of the project.
Peg, thank you for working with Yvonne to make sure we had that worded correctly, because I know it made a couple different rounds at the P&D meeting, so thank you for making sure that was correct. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, well present. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Item 22, vote to ratify the agreement between CMRPC, which is the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, and the town of Southbridge for a comprehensive set of GIS services in the amount of $4,000 for a one-year period effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, with automatic renewal after the first year term unless amended as set forth in Section 8 of said agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Okay. Ken, you want to explain it real quick? I don't know if anybody, I mean, Eric, see, I did the same thing the manager did, see? We don't know who you are, Eric. It's because you have to introduce yourself to the council, too. Another new person down below. Sorry, Eric.
That's fine. I answered it, Ken, just as well as Eric. No problem. Eric Rumsey, I'm the new town planner and conservation agent for the town. I started March 18th. Previously have about 15 years of experience in the planning field, as well as in the GIS field. So essentially, the town has been paying CMRPC $4,000 every year, currently for a contract. What's different this year is they have introduced a tiered, I guess a tiered schedule of hours that they will offer to towns for them to conduct GIS services. So we picked the mid-tier, which is tier 3, and it's approximately 50 hours that we would receive at $80 an hour. If we go above the 50 hours, it's that $80 an hour fee, so there's no increase if that. Coming to the town with about 20 years of GIS experience, it is my hope that we will be able to reduce that number greatly next year. Currently we're looking at software issues and sharing between the planning staff and DPW. They do share wonderfully. Thank you, Heather.
Are you all set?
Yes.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Have you gone back to see how many hours we've used them in the past to come up with this number?
Yes, I have. So we asked that very question, and I'm sorry, I just lost it here. So in fiscal year 15, we used 2.25 hours. In fiscal year 16, 23.5. Fiscal year 17, 34.5. Fiscal year 18, 53.5. And to date, we've used 31.25 hours.
Thank you.
And I would venture to guess that's because of the level of experience that both you and Ken probably had on the tear and all that too, with planning.
Partially, obviously we have a large jump between 17 and 18, and that was largely due to partially due to the zoning bylaw rewrite, and also the medical marijuana bylaws being written and passed and things like that. So.
Any further discussion? Council Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Thank you. It's great to have you before the council. Welcome. I know it's been a couple of months. Lots of good luck, and thank you for the service. Just a comment, and it won't hold us up. I just always seem to run across little nuances, and I'm not a fan of any contract before us right now that calls for automatic renewal. Certain circumstances could change. This here is not something I'm overly concerned about in its scope, but automatic renewal does not work well with municipal government and budgeting, for instance. So I just call that to the council's attention. And if anyone wants to read it, it is under term on page 1, and it's referenced in the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Adams?
So to Councilor Nash, we did bring that up because it was a concern of ours as well, with the explanation of the company will be billing come April. At that point in time, it's kind of like a tickler. It's going to remind you do we need it or do we not need it? If we don't need it, then make sure that we send a memo that we are not extending that contract. Am I correct, Eric?
That is correct. Yes, April 22nd, I believe they're going to notify us with a report as to the amount of hours that we have utilized from them over the past, however many weeks that may be. And then we will be able to look at the contract and reauthorize either at the $4,000 rate or potentially a lower rate if we're no longer utilizing their services to the same level.
Councilor DePietro?
Mr. Chair, unless Council Nash read something into this, and I didn't spend a lot of time with it, but it was sold to subcommittee as the option for renewal was in our favor, and we could get out of it if we wanted to. And that's how it was described to subcommittee. And unless you caught something there that is a catch-22, that's how it was sold. Thank you.
Councilor Nash?
Thank you. I make no inference about catching anything that should concern anybody. I don't subscribe to the notion that any of our municipal contracts should be subject to automatic renewal. That is a problem for municipal budgets and for government. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a point of information, I'm not sure what subcommittee, because this was at planning development, so and I know there was another one as well that you may be referencing, but your point is well taken, Councilor Nash, and I think that's why the subcommittee really hammered it home about this automatic renewal and making sure that we watch that, knowing the past council's thoughts on this issue. Any further? Councilor Steves?
Okay, a quick question to you, Eric. I'm just out of curiosity, how much, going forward, how many hours do you think that you would be able to take off of the CMRPC contract in future years?
In this first year, I would have to guess probably 30 hours. Moving forward, potentially all of them.
Okay. All those in favor? Oh.
We don't have the ability to print color maps, and one of the things that they do to support us is they do print when we need maps done in color, especially our zoning maps. You'll see they're all color-coded. We don't have that ability. To get the equipment to do that would be very expensive. So I don't know if I see them ever totally going away, because they do that at a very reasonable rate.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Well, let me catch that again. All those in favor? Opposed? So 2 opposed, Council Lazo and Council Nash. Motion carries. 6-2. Item 23, vote to ratify the extension of the completion of the comprehensive pavement preservation contract for FY 2020, which is July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, with Indus, formerly Sale Code Incorporated, for a third and final year at the current contract prices for the contract amount of $201,767. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Steves.
Yeah, I do. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for bringing this one and the next agenda item forward, since I was the one who raised holy hell about them not coming to us last year. So thank you very much for bringing them forward. I was curious, I guess Heather would probably be the one to answer this. How much did they do last year, and how much, and what's scheduled for this year?
So we had given them a list of roads to complete last year. I believe the total they did was about $100,000. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I didn't look them up today. We go out, and so some of the roads we've already told them to go back out as long as this was assigned to go back out, and we do some of the roads that were on the list that have been prioritized prior, and Matt will be surveying to see if there's any more roads that need to be added. It's about $100,000 that we put aside every year, Chapter 90 funds, for crack sealing.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Also, when does this contract need to go out to bid again? This is the last year.
This is the last year, the third year, yeah.
Okay.
So when do you go out to bid on it for the next 3?
We'll go out to bid probably next March.
Okay. And I echo Council Steve's comment about thank you for bringing it forward with all the prices and everything, because I remember right off the bat, I think that was a contentious meeting right off the bat. So, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 24, vote to ratify the extension of the piping, hydrants, and appurtenances, whatever that is. That's a new word on me. I didn't learn that in high school. Number 2018-1-water, contract with H.R. Prescott and Sons Incorporated for a third and final year at the price escalators defined in the contract for a total not to exceed $70,596 per year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Heather? Do you have information?
This is similar to the last contract. We bid this contract as a 3-year renewal. This one had escalators in it. Again, we're just trying to renew this for the last and final year. With the contract, it will go back out to bid. It's an item by item to try to get a range of what we might buy from them. It's not, we don't buy that specific number of anything, but it's so that we have prices for every item, well, for most of the items that we could buy from them, so that we have an idea what we'd be spending.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 25, vote to ratify a contract with Garland Company for the supply of roofing materials in the amount of $66,854.50 plus shipping costs, approximately $5,000. See item D, Garland Company quotes for wastewater treatment plant roofing materials. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Council Manna?
Why isn't there just a total cost for everything? Why is this all separate? The shipping costs and the materials, why is that separate? Why aren't we voting on the total cost of $71,854.50?
Unfortunately, the shipping cost has to be an estimate. They don't do the shipping. The shipping comes from a separate company, so it has to be an estimate of what they think the shipping is going to be. So that's why it's broken that way. We have an actual quote on the materials based on state bid list, but it doesn't include the shipping. The shipping is an estimate.
do you think the shipment may go over the estimated 5,000?
We've asked them to make sure that it's high. What I would say to that is if it does, we will just cover that in next year's wastewater treatment plant money. You know, we have general money that we said we just have to cover whatever that difference is. But this is what we would be planning for. This will be an encumbrance because it won't hit before that. But this is in the current wastewater treatment plant budget.
Thank you.
Council Steves?
Yeah, quick question. According to the memo here that Matt wrote, it mentions, or Adam Silent mentions that it makes more sense to buy all the material at one time, but it depends on when you'll have the money to do each roof. Are all of these roofs being planned for this coming fiscal year?
So originally they were being planned for this current year, and the prices unfortunately went up. Even state bid list prices went up.
Right.
So we will have to probably be selective on which roofs we do and what we can cover, but that will have to go out to bid for just labor costs in in this coming year's budget. But it isn't actually included in the budget. It would be probably something that would be capital reserve, or we'd be looking at doing it next spring. Potentially we could do some this fall depending on timing and how expensive they are. Some of them are going to be a lot cheaper than others. Some of them are really expensive to do. In addition, some of them could be covered by the additional money we have in the BioTower project because they are directly connected. The roof drains are directly connected into the plant process flow, and the DEP wants us to get them disconnected. So they have agreed that they would pay for the labor for the disconnections.
Okay.
So if we put another project back out to bid, like we're talking about for the headworks, that would be included in the headworks bidding. Okay?
And you would have the materials for it. That's what you're
Then
saying.
we'd have funds for that, but we'd have the materials already.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And I'm just curious, would the same contractor be doing all of these roof projects, or would
Depends
it
on
depend
how
on
we
the
bid them.
project?
If we bid them in conjunction with the DEP, under that, probably not. Just because it will be a subcontractor type bid, the
Right.
other ones would have to be bid out separately.
Okay.
Council Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How old are these roofs?
85's issue.
85.
They're from when they redid a lot of these buildings back in 1985. So they're old, and they're built up roofs. They're flat roofs with interior drains. They're leaking very badly.
So like everything else down there, it's 30 years old.
Yeah.
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to ratify the contract with Piapi Construction for Moore Street Sewer Main Replacement in the amount of $10,000 per day, not to exceed $70,000. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Heather?
So I think some of you are aware of this. We have a broken sewer line, collapsed, broken, clogged. What other term can I use for the sewer line on Moore Street? It's about a 120-foot section from Cisco Street going south towards Main Street. We got an emergency order from DCAM to allow us to just send out and request quotes for the project. We sent that bid sheet, had to be written quotes, out to 5 contractors. Only one of them provided us with a bid. He did call me and say, I'm not comfortable bidding it this way, that way we had it in bid form, but I will give you a daily rate and I'll give you the number, I think it will take less than 7 days, but it could take 7 days depending on the conditions that we find at the time. So I said, well, you're the only one who's even talking to me about it, so I'll write up your bid and I'll take it to council and we'll consider it. But what I will say is this is an emergency. It is a known break, so it is known discharge, so it's treated like an overflow, so we need to address it. It's on DEP's radar. If we don't address it and just let it go, they're gonna come after us. So we need to fix this. There is money in the current budget that I can use that wasn't other projects that weren't done on our system. So it's not that I need any money. I'll be able to encumber this funds and be able to use existing budgets money.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Blakely. When did we find out about the sewer main break?
It's been about 2 weeks now by the time we're done. I need to read 3. What happened was we had basically sewer that came up into the top of the road through a crack. Originally, I thought it was water. The water department went there and said, oh, it's not water, that's sewer. Sewer department went over and investigated. They found a clog with 2 full-size beach towels down in the pipe. Removing those beach towels did allow that to start flowing back through the pipe again. They subsequently did additional inspections on the sewer line, doing camera inspections, and found that this section of pipe was both bellied, crushed, broken, a variety of different problems in there. It's clay. We've done a test pit since there to kind of get some more information on what it was. The clay sewer line and the water line are less than a foot apart, basically at the same elevation, which ironically is probably going to work in our favor, because if the sewer line was below it, it was going to make the construction a lot more difficult. It's not going to be an easy construction. There's a lot of flow coming from that area, so it has to be bypassed. There's some logistics things that are going to have to be worked out. It will probably, at least during construction, mean closing that section of the road, which we will be able to direct people around. Cisco's right there, but that's a highly traveled section of road. So it's going to be an interesting construction for that week.
So what are we doing now to contain it?
The good news is, because the clog is removed, the majority of the flow is going down the pipe. It wants to find the easiest path. There is still a pipe, there is still a void there that it will travel through. It just is not protected from the ground around it. And it is subjected, it potentially could clog again because of the poor condition of that pipe. If something else large goes down that pipe that shouldn't be there, even paper towels, even those disposable wipes, diapers, when we find clogs, that's usually what it is. Not full-size beach towels, by the way, but that was a very eye-opening, yeah.
Can we trace it?
So we would like to get this started as soon as possible. Mr. Piappi did know that I had to come to council. When I spoke to him when he put in his bid last week, he was hoping to probably start it next week. Not this week, just because of his schedule too, so.
Council Steves?
Yeah. Obviously, that means that you'll end up breaking through the pavement on that section of the street, and that section of the street is already pretty bad.
Yeah.
Is there any plans to do curb-to-curb paving?
That would have to be
nice if you could
something
do
that we would address after we get this done. That money, this is only for labor.
Right.
We've bought all the materials up to this point. Any pavement will come out of sewer to do a temporary patch on that, and then we'll have to address that in the future.
Because I would think if we were doing this, it would make sense, since we just did the other section of Morris
Yeah.
Street. So it would be nice to have Morris Street all be done.
It
Get
would
out of
be
the way.
lovely to have that. We'll look at it once we're also looking at putting a pavement bid out for overlays, so if it's possible, we'll be using some of that to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Council Daniel?
Through you, please. Am I correct in assuming that we're paying prevailing wage in terms of the
Yes,
hourly rates?
correct.
So in the packet, is this information current?
Yes.
That's eye-opening.
Oh, yes.
Very, very large amounts.
It is extremely large amounts of what we pay for prevailing wage, yes.
Thank you, that's all.
Council Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll indulge me, just a quick silly question to the DPW director, but how long has it been since we've used clay pipe in this town?
Way before I was here. That pipe, we estimate, is from the 1930s, maybe even before that. Some of the plans I saw were early 1900s, 1912, 1911. I don't know what year it actually went in. The plans for the pipes were back from then. And I'm sure it's never been replaced.
Of course. Goes to my continuing point about infrastructure in this community and the need to address these challenges now and not wait for pipe collapses and failures. But thank you, I support this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous for all present. Council's forum. Let's start with my good friend, Councilor Lazo.
I would just like to say to Mark DePietro, thank you very much for your years of service. I know you're outgoing. And I'd like to thank Joe Catrona and Mike Marchetti. We will be going on to the council, and Monique Manna, congratulations. You have another year. It's always interesting during the campaign season. I think I'm very honored and humbled to be on the council with a group of councilors that I'm very optimistic to be working with, and I'm honored to work with you. One of the things that I've learned over the years is it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice as a counselor, and I think that, you know, I want to bring some civility. I think this council, under the chairmanship of Jack Jovan, and the councils that are here now, brought a lot of civility to the council this past year. And I think we have to continue to work in that manner, and I think we have tough issues. We're not going to agree on everything. I never do, and we'll work on it to find the common ground for the benefit of the citizens. And coupling that with maybe a little bit of common sense, just like the Indian Club, you're building a multi-million-dollar parking lot, and one of the social clubs has been there for as long as I've been around, gets overlooked instead of talked to, brought out. What do you need? How can we work it in? We need to do things a little differently in town. We'll work on it. I'd just like to thank the people of Southbridge for electing me. And to the people that didn't vote for me, I'll work twice as hard to get your support in the future. I just have a couple of thank yous. I'd like to thank my brother Steve, the sign king as he's called. Nobody can put up more signs than Steve Lazo. Quick thank you for Mike Montagny and John Tubby Matthew. Good friends, hard workers. I couldn't have been here without the group. And I'm looking forward to working together with the town manager, the council, and the boards and commissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer my congratulations to Councilor DePietro and offer him my best wishes. I hope you enjoy your retirement, and don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. Be around. I'd like to offer my thanks to Nancy and William Big Will Ortiz for putting on a handball tournament this past weekend at McGann Field at Henry Street. It was sponsored by the New England Handballers Association, and it was a well-attended tournament. We had people coming in from New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. It was a drawdown tournament. Lasted probably about 5 hours of play, matches going on and on. It was very well conducted. There was no animosity. The players were all playing very hard and competitive, but friendly. I know that Councilor Adams and I were very impressed with the entire production and how well that it went off. So my congratulations to Nancy and Big Will and the New England Handballers Association. I'd like to say that they're sponsoring a youth clinic on July 10th. And I know that there's a lot of talk by people in town that there's nothing to do for the kids. Well, here's something else for the kids to do. This is open to children 10 to 18 years old, male and female, and they're going to form a couple of teams if they can to go out and compete. And they're going to have a clinic to introduce the game to the kids and to have a drawdown to see who might make the team or teams. So I challenge people to be there on July 10th at 5:30 down at Henry Street Field and take advantage of what is a good opportunity for kids to be busy and to do something athletic and productive. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. First of all, I want to thank DPW for putting up the American flags the other day. Down Main Street, they look great. I really do appreciate that, and so do a lot of other people. I want to thank the town clerk for putting on a great election. Ran very smoothly. It was quick. The results came out pretty fast, faster than I guess that was estimated to be. Congratulations to the new councilors. They'll be coming on board on July 1st. Councilor DePietro, I wish you all the best. Thank you for everything you've done for the last 3 years, sticking this out and dealing with all the headaches and not always the fun times too. So I do appreciate that a lot. I want to thank Nancy and Will for inviting me to the handball tournament this past weekend. It was pretty great. I got to see the last hour of it. Great competition. And I think that's all I have. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'll echo the same sentiment and extend my best to Councilor DePietro. He's been a gentleman every step of the way, despite some adversity and disagreements that occurred in subcommittees. Mark, you're a good man, and I respect you immensely. I look forward to seeing you on a board or a commission down the line, because I think that your experience, your knowledge, and your commitment to this community is unquestionable. I look forward to your participation somewhere, and I hope that you'll step up. It's invaluable. I'll save my remarks for the next new councilors for next week, but congratulations to Councilor Lazo. It will be a pleasure to work alongside you. I know you bring a lot of experience and knowledge to the position, and we will continue down a path of optimism, positivity, and progress in this community. I have no doubt about that. I'd like to wish all the students who are off for the summer a good, safe, enjoyable time. Please keep your eyes open if you're someone who operates motor vehicles in this town. Look out for the kids when you're out and about, and just be safe. And with that, thank you for a good first session of 2019. I'm sorry, for a good first year, Councilor Jovan as chair. You've done a remarkable job, and I'd like you to know that publicly. It's been a very, very interesting year, but a very good one, and we appreciate your guidance and your diligence. It's been very impressive, and I'm not going to butter you up anymore. I don't want anything. Lastly, I'm glad to hear that Councilor Daniel and Councilor Adams attended Nancy and Will's event. I hope that they get out and play, because it is a tough sport to play, but it's a lot of fun too. Your leadership and your participation might encourage others to show up, so please do. Thanks.
Is that it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for the kind words. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, a few things. I'd also like to thank Councilor DePietro for serving on the last 3 years. It's been a pleasure working with you, getting to know you, and thank you for everything that you do. Even though that this is the last official Monday meeting, you still have one more meeting to attend Thursday. I expect to see you there. Congratulations, Councilor Jovan, on your re-election. Congratulations, Councilor Lazo, on your election. And I'd also like to congratulate Councilor-elect Marchetti and Councilor-elect Catrona on their election. And all those people who also put their names out there, and their names on the ballot, because, you know, putting your name out there and getting out there to want to serve your community is just, it's a huge step, and I just thank anybody who does that. I think I spoke to you about this before, Mr. Town Manager, the billboards at McMahon Field, they're like, the billboards at McMahon Field, I got a call, somebody saying that they were like, they needed to be replaced, basically, because you could barely read them, so.
Which billboard? I'm sorry, I just can't hear what you're saying.
The billboards at McMahon Field. Yeah, McMahon Field. Yes. Did that come through? Okay.
I think...
Or I mentioned it to somebody.
I got a call as well. I think it was the actual Harry J. McMahon
Yeah, okay.
sign that's in need of some paint. I'm not sure who's responsible for that, either school, that may be the school department that's responsible for that. But, yeah.
Yeah, I get that call too, and actually I pass it on to the Jovan.
Oh, I'll let Councilman
Okay.
finish. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Everybody must have got a call then.
We all got a
Okay,
call,
We all
yes.
got a
We
call,
all got a
so
call,
that's
yes.
good. Okay. I also, I think it's really important what happened with the asbestos in this building. This building was built in 1888, and to have projects going on in this building and not even think that there might be a possibility of no asbestos being in here is just like ignorant, because we should always think that there's asbestos in the buildings that old. Anything built, actually, I think I sent everyone an email 1973, they stopped using the sprays for asbestos, but in 1989, anything with asbestos you could not use in a building. So I think it's really important that this town gets a list together of the town-owned buildings that could potentially have asbestos in it, and perhaps we need to look into identifying those buildings in the areas and having some type of a booklet. So when there's another project that comes up, we know if there's asbestos. I think it's worth the conversation to have. So now we're not closed for 3 days, you know, and going out of our minds because now we're having to hook this up, that up, getting a camper here, you know, having people work from home or not even work at all and still have to pay those that weren't working. So I think it's really important that we do something like that and have it available to us. I want to thank the chair, though, for being very communicative throughout the whole process. You, Mr. Chairman, are the one I got the most information from. So thank you. I greatly appreciate that. And that's it. Thank you.
So, Councilman, I just want to follow up on the asbestos issue on the plan itself. I did get some communication. I did follow up with Heather on this, which I found it surprising, but not surprising, I guess, because the school department, the director of facilities forwarded to me a letter that they post whenever they have a contractor come in that says this building's been evaluated, there's been an asbestos study, and before you do any work, please refer to our study or contact us. And there's an asbestos plan. And the DPW director has informed me that that's a requirement of the school district, of schools in the Commonwealth, but not town buildings itself. So I think we should maybe reach out to the school department as to how they did their asbestos plan and maybe coordinate how they get that information so that we can develop an asbestos plan ourselves. Because it is very important. Anybody that does work in town buildings, the contractor should have known, and that's another day we'll discuss that, but that's a point well taken that we should have that plan developed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting us know that, and that's something that would fall under EHS, I believe, and so perhaps maybe we should have a meeting about that, because it is truly important that we have something in place for the asbestos. And
I think
you should automatically assume anything that's 100 years old.
I think while this will prompt us to maybe push in the next sitting council to have that conversation about the combination of DPW and school maintenance employees. While I'm not totally convinced on how it would work, I think the need to have an overall facilities manager that is responsible for all buildings, school and town, is it worthy of discussion that we should put on the agenda coming up. Do you have a follow-up to that, Councilor Lazo? I know that. Are you all set, Council?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to follow up before I close?
Yeah, because one of the points I wanted to bring out, I'll comment on the asbestos, but the Pioneer sign, I've talked, it looks kind of shabby, so right away, the alumni guys got together. Instead of the school paying for it, the town paying for it, I think the alumni wants to step up and donate to reconditioning of the sign. So it's more of a project on the side that a bunch of guys saw it and said, looks terrible, we all got our Pioneer pride. If we can help out, we'll go forward with it. We've talked about it at the Hall of Fame committee and some of the alumni, so we're going to be in contact with Mike Como because it's under his jurisdiction. As far as the asbestos, if I can comment, I know I had many conversations with the manager as it was unfolding. Chairman Jovan, you know us more than anybody. When you got the history, you always bring forward the history or your knowledge so you don't make the same mistakes twice. It's an interesting thing that there was a gasket that had asbestos, but the former Kinstry company did a total remediation of that room when they put the boiler in the mid-'80s. I happened to be on the council back then, so I said, through the gentleman that contacted me, that there was an asbestos remediation report with the bill when the town got it. And I don't know where that goes. After it goes, it doesn't go anywhere probably. But the asbestos question needs to be looked at like we did on school side. There's a plan, and it's always enforced and upgraded, making sure everything is either removed or encapsulated. And it's monitored. If it's frayed, you have to go after it. There are a ton of regulations. So I think that's another project for the new council.
Okay. Councilor DePietro. And again, thank you, Council Manning, for reminding you that you need to be here Thursday night. However, this was the last regularly scheduled meeting, so that's why I'm giving the opportunity for us to wish you our good wishes. But I do expect and demand that you are
I
there
will
on
be
Thursday.
pleased to join you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. First off, I just want to thank the citizens of Southbridge for allowing me the honor and the privilege to serve on this council. Thank you to my fellow councilors. It's been a pleasure, sometimes a challenge, but a pleasure working with all of you. My congratulations to incoming councilors. Again, my thanks to our chair. Great job this year, and I hope you'll be considered by the future council. My thanks to all the department heads, town manager, and everyone in your office. Pleasure to work with. And if nothing else, in the 3 years of experience I've had, and I'm certainly not a politician, and I don't plan to be one in the future, but it was a learning experience. But if nothing else, I can share with this council, future councilors, and citizens, a lot of people, and even this council, and even myself until year 2, forgot what this form of government, how it works, to read the charter, to realize the town manager has 9 bosses. The hierarchy starts at this table. And council, when I came in, I believe it lost a sense of that. And we're getting it back. And council, the department heads, the town manager's office, the charter is the Bible. The charter is our constitution. And if we did lose sight of it, I think we're getting it back. And if nothing else, I've witnessed and hopefully added to heading to that destination and making that little green book, the beginning and the end of every question, any debate that encompasses hierarchy, funds, transfer funds, funds in general. There's 9 people that decide ultimately on the millions of dollars that go in and out of this town. And I don't think a lot of citizens realize that. And a lot of times the town manager will get a phone call, hey, why this, why this, why this? And he should refer, hey, these 9 folks, you talk to them. I work for them. They're my boss. And that makes your job a little easier, I think. And you should take advantage of that. And council should realize that. But that said, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Steves.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for your service there, Mark. It's been interesting working with you. I've learned a lot from you. Hopefully you will step up as as Rick mentioned, and you'll take some vacant seat on some other committee and add your knowledge to that, because that would be helpful. Also, congratulations to Monique and Jack and Scott and Mike and Joe and all of the other people who got elected in the past election. For the other ones, even though you didn't have the other ones who didn't have opponents, still, they put their name out there, and that's still really important, that you're willing to step up and participate and get involved in our town. And because this isn't our town, it's everybody's town, not just up here. Also, I just wanted to mention that we're going to be needing subcommittee members going forward for the next year. There's various vacancies on various committees, so check out with the town manager's office on what's available. I don't know them off the top of my head right now, but put your name in for something. We need good people, so please step forward. And other than that, that's all I have at the moment. We do have, the next meeting date is, as people have already mentioned, it's Thursday, the 27th here in the Chambers. And then the next regular council meeting will be the reorganization on July 1st.
Not only reorganization, there will be a regular meeting as well.
Right,
after that.
right.
So we'll have both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Seeing none? And just a reminder to councilors, fellow councilors, make sure you bring your capital plan and any budget materials with you on Thursday night as we review that plan. Having that? Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Thank you and have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.